assuming some of you do. And if you have questions about writing, getting started, getting stuck, coming up with names, world building, anything and everything you ask me, I will answer you honestly. But not because I'm a good person. We've gotten that out. What I am is a lousy liar. I always get caught. I would rather tell you the truth, even if I risk making a fool of myself, which frankly is something I do fairly often. So I would rather do that and then have you catch me in a lie and not listen to anything important I have to say. So those are the ground rules. And the rest of this conversation, and that is what this is up to you. You ask, I answer. And once again, I get to savor your faces. Talk? Yes.
How did you start off with the world building in Tortle? That's always been one thing that I've loved, was just how complex of a world Tortle was.
How did I start out with the world building in Tortal? Well, I have been accused of making a country that is either Spain or New Jersey. No one sure. I just sort of drew it there, and I built on. Obviously, I am pretty much influenced by the European map with its inland sea and the coast of Africa below. As I got more sophisticated, I began to look more at changing the land masses around, so the Copper Isles and the Yamani Islands are in different places from where their real world counterparts are. When I was starting out, obviously I was also influenced by the real world counterparts, Gala for Gaul, Scanra, Scandinavia, Marin, and Serain I just sort of made up, Tuzain also. Carthage, obviously Carthage falls into the mix somewhere. And then I basically filled stuff in as I went. An affection for T.E. Lawrence and Beau Geste led me to put a desert in the middle of Tortal. And I filled in everything else. Now I'm being more careful, I'm spreading out a bit. I created my landmass to the east. We're working on the Tortal Companion Book, which supposedly is coming out next year.
Supposedly.
I know, honey. We're coordinating about 5 writers and an erratic editor. So maybe not next year, it may be the year after, but it will have bigger maps as well as more information on the realm itself.
7, isn't it?
Huh?
7, isn't it?
7 what?
Writers.
I don't know, honey. I lost track of you guys weeks ago.
Isn't Skylar bad enough?
I don't have to keep track of you. You're supposed to keep track of me. He's working on, he is voicing in Evan Lars as commander, well, deputy commander of the Shadow Service, serving under Miles of Olau and the Whisper Man, and writing the guide for the Shadow Service for nursemaids, ostlers, and falconers. We are not including code. I do not feel, no, stop making faces at me. I do not feel it is a good idea to have code out there where just any old buddy can get a hold of it.
Just the principles of how to use codes.
Maybe, okay, that's better. And the workbook for a very young spy written by the Whisper Man for his daughter Ollie. So that's
you did that mostly.
That's what you're doing. And we have other things as well. does that answer it fully?
Yeah, I was just curious because I've been working on world building myself for several years now. I just wanted to know what it is that you did.
I start with the real world and a culture. Marin is sort of like medieval France. Serene is sort of like medieval Europe with a culture built on the Montagnard tribes of the Central Highlands of Vietnam for the Khmer. Actually, it's Khmer with an H missing after the Khmer of Cambodia. Carthage, I always thought I'd be able to base my culture on Carthage if I ever had to go there. But I forgot something important, which was that Carthage was burned to the ground. It was sown with salt. Not a lot of information about daily life, but I found out Carthage was a Phoenician colony, so I went to Phoenicia, got the basic fashions there, found some kings' names, because they're like 6 miles long, so you can chop them up. Not enough names for me, and most of the architecture was temples, which wasn't real useful. So I went to the Babylonians, the Hittites, the Sumerians, the Assyrians. I think I went to Ur for a couple names. Then I punted to my favorite culture, ancient Egypt, for some more daily life stuff, but big banquets don't mix well with barley beer and honey cakes. So by then I was getting really kind of desperate. And also Dane didn't want cones of incense melting on her head. So I went to Mr. Apicius' cookbook for ancient Rome, but I got the unnotated version. And so when Mr. Apicius said, take a fish and bake it, well, Mr. Apicius, I know it wasn't cod, because cod is a deep water fish. What kind of fish was swimming in the Mediterranean in your day, Mr. Apicius? It didn't say. So then I went to unmentionable cuisine and a menu for senior management marketing at Chase Manhattan Bank for the big mucky mucks at some little retreat, which included rattlesnake medallions and a port wine reduction, so I had them eating steak in Carthage.
We used to work for these people.
So that was how I did it.
Okay.
And I get last names and place names when I go to a specific place in the world's basic culture. I get my last names and place names from the map, not of the well-known places and cities, but of the smaller cities and towns and the mountains, the rivers, the islands, the bays, the peninsulas, and sometimes I'll break them up or fiddle with the spelling a bit. But that gives me what I need for that.
And at that point in time, the Chase telephone directory was invaluable.
Yes, it was, but don't ever use both names of a person from a phone book, because that's lawsuit country.
I was wondering where you got the idea for Becca's series to put a noir cop drama in a fantasy setting.
Actually, for Circle Opens, I was doing cop dramas anyway. I had not done enough to make me happy with George and the Lord Provost in his time. And I had based that Lord Provost, the very little we see of him, on my dad. So I kind of missed my dad. And we had talked, my editor and I, about doing something either, well, I had thought 200 years later than Alana, and she said no, because then our friends would be dead. So I thought, okay, a lot of the fans have been asking about the Lady Knights, and I thought it'd be good to go back in time to their era, so we could see them as well, why not? And I could do something with the Provost Guard, and show the lower city at the same time. And I like crime. I like mysteries, I like true crime. I read a lot of true crime, as is obvious from the Circle Opens. And so that was where I started with the Provost Guard's dogs in their day. and a Lord Provost based on Sam Elliott, who sounds very like my father. And I'd already done the research for serial kidnappers, murderers, and went from there. Yes?
You write several different series, and the main characters in each series seem to have a different voice. How do you keep all those different voices separate?
I'm going to say this a lot, so let me make it clear right now. I am not good at making stuff up. I base characters, I base cultures, I base them on the real world. I base characters on real people as much as I can. I started out when I was a kid, when I started writing in 6th grade, I realized that all my characters were looking and sounding the same. So I started basing them on the people I knew. And now I use people I know, fans, actors, performers, sometimes the characters that the actors play, reality show people, professional wrestlers, rock stars. I have to have something to start with. I've gotten to the point where if I have the right photo and I have the right name, a character will sometimes come to me. That's where I got Ollie, that's where I got Briar, that's where I got Daja. Rosethorn is Major Kira Reeves from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
The actress who played Rosethorn in the audiobooks in the later versions.